Okay. Well, hello, Michelle. I would like to introduce you to the rest of the world out there. I'm here today with Michelle Jenck, and she is the director of the Tillamook County Wellness Program. And their whole approach is kind of a holistic approach, all-encompassing. And she's kind of from my neck of the woods in Tillamook. And so I'm really excited to hear about this, especially something happening, you know, in little old Tillamook. And it just sounds so kind of advanced way of looking at how to do things. And that's pretty cool. So welcome, Michelle.
Well, thank you for having me. We're excited to get to share this with a broader audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So what exactly is your role with the Tillamook County Wellness Program?
I am the contracted coordinator, and the program itself was started by the Board of County Commissioners, and they tapped our public health department, which is an integrated primary care clinic, public health. So Tillamook County Community Health Centers is our backbone agency that provides all of this infrastructure and staff support, including my role as coordinator for Tillamook County Wellness. And we've been established since 2015, and it's been a pretty wild ride. It's been pretty fun. We're out working upstream. The public health administrator, Marlene Putman, calls this work upstreamist. Yes. I love that because it is all of that. It's everything that implies.
Wow. And I didn't know that. So here I've been in the Tillamook area for 5 years. I didn't know that. So yeah, I'm just going to spread the word. That's awesome.
Part of it is this is a collaborative. It's a collective impact model. So we have partner agencies encompassing 46 different, like all the different sectors. Obviously we have healthcare. We have very strong partners in Adventist Health and Reinhardt Clinic in the community alongside Tillamook County Community Health Centers. But then we also have the YMCA and OSU Extension, and CRD has been involved in some of the projects that we've done over the years. In fact, they're going to be helping with another one here shortly. And then we also have like Tillamook PUD and the Creamery and the Chamber and U.S. Forest Service. And we have this really extensive base of partners that are all contributing. And so it's
that's wonderful.
By design, we're trying to be a big tent, and so not everybody knows who's behind it because it's just got so many different moving parts and so many different organizations involved in it.
That's great. God, that's a real community team effort. You know,
it is.
Awesome.
It really is.
So what exactly, tell me what all it entails. What does the wellness program entail, and is there a main focus?
We do have a main focus. When we started out we launched a year of wellness in 2016, and that was really centered around just building awareness around the factors that contribute to better health and chronic disease prevention. And then subsequently, our advisory committee wanted to focus in on something that we would be more easily able to measure our impact. And so we chose reducing risk factors for type 2 diabetes by the year 2027. And so we're really focused on pre-diabetes and affecting the different environmental and systemic and behavioral factors that contribute to increased risk for developing type 2 diabetes. So when I say we're upstream, that's what that looks and sounds like.
Right, that is. And well, our whole country is under an epidemic of diabetes because of the diet and the increase in weight. I mean, what the average weight now for any age, I think is like, I don't know how much of a percent, 25% more than it was back when we were younger, and even more than when our parents were younger. I do know, and I really believe that poverty is a big culprit in health.
One of the things that we're really focusing in on more and more as we've gotten deeper into the work is assessing and influencing the social determinants of health. And poverty and other issues like access to resources and access to healthy food, access to physical activity. Those are some of the focus areas for that reason, because it is harder to access those things for people that don't have as many resources at their disposal. So really looking holistically at systems, how we work together as a community to identify and shore up those areas of those gaps. That's what this work is about. So we're not so much event driven as we are looking collaboratively at how things are working and where we can pivot systems and environments in ways that mitigate those barriers.
Right, because there's more than just one or two things that affect our health, which is, kind of like what my show is about: mind, body, spirit, environment, energy. They all have, culture.
Yes.
They all have an impact on that, and and I said in language barrier, we have some of that in Tillamook. Yeah,
we do, and we have groups that are working really hard on meeting those individuals where they are culturally, linguistically, and figuring out how we take the existing support systems and, like I said earlier, kind of pivot those so that they are more aligned to meeting those needs and understanding if people aren't taking advantage of resources that are available, what factors are contributing to that. We work to understand them better, and then we work strategically and creatively to address those.
Right. That's great. So far, what have you seen as being kind of one of the biggest changes that has occurred or is in that direction?
We've had, I think one of the biggest things that I've observed is there's always been a lot of really good work happening in the community. We have a lot of partners, a lot of resources dedicated to this work, but they were really working either in complete isolation or within little pockets of effort and energy. And this intentional collaboration, it's amazing. For one thing, we've learned what each other's doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tendency for people to say, well, somebody needs to do this, or somebody should be doing that, or this is a problem and nobody's dealing with it. When in reality, there actually are a lot of people working on it, but their impact just isn't all that visible or measurable because they're oftentimes really short-staffed, underfunded,
limited
agencies that are trying to do this work. And so the whole advantage of working collectively is you're pooling all those resources together. You're sharing information with one another. You're sharing energy and passion and actual financial resources, and then you have the ability to make a greater impact. And then when people start seeing things happening, they start wanting to be part of the solution instead of, they're doing something.
Absolutely. They start getting a taste of that win, and they want to be a part of it. And which is what I, preach all the time. Positive breeds positive, negative breeds negative. Which direction do you want to go in? And I think a lot of people wind up being naysayers because they don't, there's not the faith, there's not the experience of letting go and then seeing what can happen. And, most of it is just a fear base and, not wanting to fail, not wanting it to look bad. But you learn so much as you go along and, there was a little bit of a roadblock. Okay, we'll know next time. And and then you all get to learn that together. And then the clients benefit. So speaking of clients, how many do you think, it's a community thing, but is there a way of tracking the number of clients that are involved in this?
Those are some of the things that we're working on right now. So we have 5 action committees. We have access to healthy food, access to physical activity, health screenings, health promotions, and workplace wellness. And we actually got a grant that was actually recently extended through the Oregon Health Authority. We will have had 18 months of grant funded support to work on addressing prediabetes within the clinical system, but also connecting people into community-based resources and vice versa, to help them reduce their risk of becoming diabetic. So during the course of this work, we realized, first of all, that nobody was actually testing people intentionally or systematically for prediabetes.
Right.
Typically, a person becomes symptomatic, goes to the doctor, finds out that they are diabetic, and then has to begin that regimen of dealing with that health diagnosis. So working together strategically in the way that we are, we've been able to work with the IT and data analysts within our healthcare systems to develop workflows and identify the coding that would be necessary and the workflow that would be necessary to bring a person in, do a prediabetes screening that's just a really quick risk assessment on paper that leads to the prompt whether or not they need to have an A1C test done. And then they get entered into this system in those series of steps, and then potentially get referred if they are at risk based on their A1C test result. And none of that was happening before, you know, and you'd think maybe that would be like intuitive, that should have been happening, but the systems really aren't designed to function that way. That's upstream thinking, and that requires some outside working into the system. And until the way that we operate our healthcare system changes, that has to happen through efforts like this, where everybody gets together and says, you know what, the way we're doing this isn't ideal. There are ways that we could catch people earlier and prevent diagnosis from occurring and save all kinds of care expenses and personal health, you know, issues. And it makes sense to everyone. So, and then the flip side of that is once we get them identified as being at risk, we have amped up our diabetes prevention program offerings. The YMCA, Northwest Senior Disability Services, and several other community partners have an agreement in place to offer those classes at no charge. The Columbia Pacific CCO also is part of that. And Medicare and Medicaid cover the cost for a person to participate in those classes, and we're working on getting universal coverage for people to take those classes. Are really efficacious. If somebody takes this year-long class, they're
wow, it's a whole year.
Yeah. It's a year-long class. It's life-based.
That's great.
We've had several cohorts go through the program in Tillamook County already, about 60-some people, and they've all lost weight. They've all changed a lot of their health behaviors. And their numbers have been reversed, and by and large, everybody has been really successful. And most people adhere to it. It's 1 hour a week for 16 weeks, and then they meet every other week. But it's so reinforcing. They have a peer group. They have a health coach. People like Kelly Benson, who's a personal trainer and fitness instructor, is trained. There's a special training that you have to go through to be certified to teach these classes. We've had 9 new instructors trained, and we have a Spanish speaking instructor. So we're building the support system. It's not enough to get somebody screened and find out they're at risk. We need to have something in place that we know can really help mitigate that risk and really turn that person's life around, essentially.
Right. Well, and as a nurse, not everybody knows that once you've already been diagnosed with diabetes, there's been a lot of damage done before it even gets there. It's kind of referred to as the silent killer, because I've taught, diabetic education in the mental health field, and people just become so overwhelmed. They just say, oh, I just have a lot of sugar in my blood. They don't really get what it is. And when they take the class or they get educated, it was just kind of like a one-time thing, and it's all new language to them. and they don't understand it. And so when you start simply breaking things down about just focus on your breakfast, you know, these are things that you want to look at. This is what it can do. And when I draw out a diagram of what it looks like with diabetes on the inside of what it does, they would be like, oh, then they're a little bit more involved, because they're like, oh, that's happening on the inside. Yeah, diabetes is automatically considered heart disease. I mean, there's a lot of, yeah, diabetes is very expensive on the healthcare system, and it's very hard on the body. And about, you know, they get wind up having a lot of pain because of neuropathy, and then just the cardiac issues and not feeling good because their blood sugars are up and down. That, yeah, just that one disease, if we can just shrink it back, man, it will save so many lives.
It really will. And that's the other reason that this focus was chosen, is because the health factors that contribute to diabetes risk are, just as you said, the same as for heart disease, and actually for stroke, obviously, cancer. I think a lot of people are under a false understanding that cancer is highly genetically influenced, and it's actually for all of these diseases, genetics plays a very minor role to behavioral and environmental factors. And so we have some control over those things, and those are the small steps that we're educating people that they can take, and giving them really tangible and doable recommendations, and working with the individuals so that it's something that they're empowered to choose, and they can decide their own life what really will work for them, and breaking it down, like you said, into small chunks. The research behind the DPP program is that it only takes a weight loss of 5 to 7% of a person's body weight, just their risk for diabetes by almost 60%.
Right, because they're decreasing that insulin use, you know, not pumping. Yeah, absolutely.
So just walking more and doing some light exercise and changing some eating habits can be really impactful in a person's risk for all kinds of chronic diseases.
Yeah, small steps make big changes. You know, you just start small, and so it's not overwhelming. You don't have to feel like, oh, everything in your life. If you get used to just doing one of those things, and then you add on something else, so that you incorporate it, it just becomes a part of your life. It's not like trying to measure everything and, oh, I have to do this now and that, and then people get overwhelmed. But yeah, small steps is what really leads to success. That is awesome. So what got you interested in holistic wellness and kinesiology? You have a background in kinesiology. That's kind of interesting. I took a class in college in kinesiology, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so my undergraduate is actually in a political science area, and I worked in marketing and international sales before I moved to Tillamook, and I stayed at home to raise kids, and our kids, all of them, some more than others, we have 3 boys, had some developmental delays that were neurodevelopmental, sensory integration, things like that. And so in working with our kids to help them be as successful as they could and develop through those challenges as successfully as we could, I learned a lot about brain development in early childhood. And at the same time, I've always been, ever since I was about 16, I've been exercising pretty faithfully myself, just personally. And so when I came to Tillamook, I joined the YMCA, and I wanted a fitness class that I had been taking in another community, and they didn't offer it. And Jeannie Christensen, bless her heart, said, would you like to become trained to teach? And I was like, sure, why not? Yeah. So that began my career in fitness, and that was in 1996 that I started teaching. I became certified in 98, and I've actually taught continuously fitness classes at the YMCA since then. So it's been well over.
Awesome. Yay, the Y. It's the happy spot in Tillamook.
It's pretty awesome. I love the Y. I was a Y kid where I started working out, was at a YMCA. When I was 14, actually. I was a latchkey kid and too young to work and bored after school and was hanging out at the Y. And I just kind of wandered into the weight room and started pushing weights around and kind of liked doing it and kept asking people around me, how do you do this? How do you do that? Next thing you know, I was a power lifter in high school. Competitive power lifter, yeah. So that personal interest and passion and personal experience and understanding of how you can change your body pretty,
right,
fantastically with work and with understanding how the body works and how you safely make these adaptations in your body and your muscles and, all the other things that you
right.
Now, at the same time, I was learning about brain development and so much of the occupational therapy that we were doing in movement. Then I got really fascinated because then I really started to understand how moving influences how you're wired.
Right, how you think, brain development.
How you think, how you learn, how you process and store information, how your memory functions, how your sensory systems are integrated. And I understood how the vestibular system in early development influences how the auditory and visual systems come online or don't. And so kids that have some of these early and lasting developmental delays in learning, whether it be through like dyslexia or sensory processing or autism spectrum or some of these other challenges that we see increasingly in kids today, a lot of those symptoms can be mitigated and in some cases completely reversed through just changes in movement and nutrition in early childhood. And we saw a lot of really positive outcomes working with our own kids in that way. And I became pretty fascinated with the opportunity that presented for us, for our community, and for kids who are struggling with those things. And I really became pretty passionate about wanting to make a difference in that.
Right. Yeah. And that's not uncommon for parents who have whatever their child is challenged with, that they become immersed in that. And they kind of really wind up being, an expert on it, so to speak, a layman's expert, that's for sure, because they've been having to work through it for years, trial and error and understanding the process, and then information changes over time. And it's just absolutely amazing. And movement can do so many things. As a psychiatric nurse, I did a dance therapy class. I created one, because movement can get to places that psychotherapy and medications can't get to. It releases stuff, it decreases anxiety, it uplifts you. And it just what is it? The score, the body keeps score. Yeah. And muscle memory, all of that. Yeah. Yeah, all of that.
This is actually, are you familiar with this author or this book?
I've seen that book cover before. That looks familiar, but I haven't read it.
It's fascinating. It speaks to exactly what you're talking about. Trauma is thoughts, physical, emotional. Trauma is stored in the body and stored in the tissues of the body, and through movement, those traumatic experiences can be accessed and ameliorated. And so there's some really great research in here from Bessel van der Kolk, who is a Dutch researcher that worked with veterans and PTSD, and he stumbled across this new understanding because he would often do his sessions with these veterans while playing racquetball. Yeah. That he could get them to open up more if they were just doing this activity. So he's just thinking it's more or less of a social, emotional barrier reducer to get out and be active. But then he really discovered that's actually the physical movement and combined with the evaluation of how
Right.
experience these things that actually allow the body to identify and
it moves it. Yeah. It moves it up.
it releases
It
it
releases
from
it.
the body. It's pretty amazing stuff. So
you can't be too guarded about it at the same time while you're doing something, you know? So it kind of, releases that part of the brain to where it's not so on guard. It's caught off.
well, part of it too is it's the way that those memories are stored in the body, the way the brain and the amygdala and the hippocampus, the memory of that traumatic experience is stored in such a way that it doesn't, it's not integrated, it's a fragment.
Right.
And that the movement taps into the way that the brain and the body can integrate those experiences. And until they become integrated, they really cannot become exercise from the body.
Right. Well, and our body is always in movement. Our body has a natural, has its own rhythm,
internally.
Parts of our body. Everything is, it's life in motion, you know? And it makes a huge difference. And when I worked with, did this course with my mentally ill clients, man, it was everything I had hoped for and more. Just how it decreased their symptoms, their anxiety, and of course they felt happier because you're moving, and it's creative. Creativity is very important. I think it's a very important part of our life, that if we're not creating something, I think a part of us becomes stagnant. And because creativity brings joy.
Yeah, and I think we are hardwired to want to be successful and do something rewarding that has some sense of gratification to it. And finding something that we can do that makes us feel that way, and for it's different for every person.
Right.
So making sure, especially children, are finding what that is for themselves, and being given opportunities to be successful in that arena.
Right.
And that can be really life-changing. And that's something that and that's something communities can offer. We have 4-H, we have library story time, we have all these different ways where people can get connected to opportunities to build those experiences in ourselves, in our children, or all the way through the lifespan. So one of the goals of Tillamook County Wellness is to make sure that people avail themselves of those opportunities, that they know that they're there for them, and just because it might be something to do with your time, but it's something really constructive and edifying for your body, mind, and soul and spirit, to engage in those things and to be curious about what is it that I enjoy doing. And
it's fun. It's like, fun is healthy. Fun is a good thing. You're creating endorphins, and if you can find whatever you can do that gets you out moving or doing something, joy is the deal, man. Absolutely.
Well, I think we've really had several days worth of if something's good for you, it's a sacrifice, and it's not fun, and it's something fun out of your life. And there's, like you just said, there's so much that is fun, that is self-promoting.
Right.
Shine the spotlight on those things rather than always saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this.
Right.
Say, hey, here are all these great things you can do. Empower people to figure out what those are for themselves. And and it's very self-perpetuating. Once somebody has one or two of those little micro successes, then they're really engaged in seeking out more of those experiences for themselves. And everything's on a continuum. So if you're not experiencing that, you're likely to just keep seeing the things that aren't going your way and aren't kind of in that wrong direction. Whereas if you get started on the right path, you just keep moving forward on it, accumulating more healthy.
Because as you're starting to move more and
Yes.
feel better and your energy starts improving, it just is this great momentum going in the right direction. Yeah, and it really just takes movement to get started, and it can just be very little, but bit by bit. Yeah, and then you add the diet in, and suddenly you're like, wow, I feel pretty good considering, you know. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that was, so for me, I was really into working out, and I was into trying to maintain a certain body size and shape. But I learned that I could, in my younger days, I could do that with just doing more cardio and weight training, and didn't matter what I ate. And it wasn't until we had our children and we started realizing how much our oldest son is on the autism spectrum, and it was really clear very early on that what he ate had a high degree of influence on his behaviors.
Right. I remember that from the 70s when they were coming out with that stuff, and red dye, and
all of it.
Yeah.
We really changed our diet as a family to support him, and we all benefited from it immensely. I really got rid of preservatives and colorings, and we just ate more real food, source, and more vegetables, and fewer sugars and processed foods.
And we've become junkies at doing that because we want everything now. We're all making ourselves super busy, and trying to come home from work with the family, and just have everybody pitch in and make dinner together. And it's really it gets to be kind of a fun thing, and everybody gets to have their part of, oh no, I want to cook this, no, I really like making salads, and you just get to you get to really break bread in a great way.
Yes, I think eating real food and eating it together with other people in a relaxed setting, eating more meals at home, all of those things are really correlated with better health outcomes. And it is true that we are very busy and it does take time, but there are little strategies that people can employ, and those are some of the things that we really work hard to provide information about. We're actually in the process of finishing up our new website, and there are a lot of articles and tips and tricks, and there'll be some videos and other things for people to help them develop strategies for those challenges.
Right. And without having to join some kind of, special diet group or whatever. Yeah, you get to say this is
doesn't have to be a big thing. Yeah. Just
Absolutely.
doing some quick prep on vegetables, getting vegetables that you'll actually eat if they're ready to eat. Bring them right home from the store, wash them, cut them up into bite-sized pieces, in a container that's clear in the front of your refrigerator. Get some kind of hummus or some other healthy dip that you like, if that's what helps you eat those vegetables. We have a go-to hummus in our house, and I have a steady menu of cut fresh vegetables at all times. And when the kids were still in high school and coming home from sports practice and hungry, I would have all that out on the counter when they walked in the door. So they didn't reach for the granola bar or the energy bar, and instead had something healthy.
Right.
Having it be convenient, just like, why is, a convenience store, that's why we buy food at those things.
Yeah.
So we have to find strategies to make eating healthy food convenient at our own home and workplace and things like that. And it's little tricks. And once you get in the routine of it, it's just like anything else. It becomes very automatic. It's just the way you live. It's not a big deal. Those are the kinds of things that we're really trying to help people build a kind of a toolkit or an arsenal for themselves to figure out how they can make those changes.
Yeah. And crunch is very satisfying. I've kind of changed over the years as I've gotten older. I have found that crunch is even more satisfying to me now than when I was younger. I mean, I've always loved salads, but now I just, just give me a good carrot and it's, if it's fresh, if it's out of our garden, it's so sweet. It's great. I'm a big fan of smoothies, green smoothies. So I go through spurts where I do well for a while and making them for the family. And then I don't, because I decide, oh, I'm going to sleep in a little longer, and then things start happening. But summertime is always a great way when I get back into it. And yeah, you can just throw so many things in there that you wouldn't normally eat, kale and all that kind of stuff that sometimes can be bitter, especially, for younger folks. Yeah, and then you just throw some fruit in there and voila, it tastes good. You can put a little bit of yogurt in there, and then it kind of seems more like a shake, and has a little bit of coating, and yeah, it's like a dessert.
We've been featuring almost weekly for several years now recipes, and they're in the Headlight Herald and on our website, and the Tillamook County Pioneer features a lot of our articles and recipes as well. And we use a lot of the foodhero.org recipes because they have very few ingredients and very easy to find ingredients, and they are not expensive ingredients at all. A lot of them you could find easily even locally in the summertime at the farmers market, or Food Roots has a lot of our local farm fresh produce available, and they take SNAP and
I love that
program. So there are ways that people can access healthy food that's even locally grown, with a lot of supports in place. And so once people are in a mindset to access those healthier foods, and they start getting more comfortable with cooking, I think cooking skills, cooking confidence,
right?
Those are things that I think are really lacking and are really affecting people's mindset around eating. It's not even just so much that they don't have time, but it's a new skill. And if we're busy, it's really hard to think of tackling a new skill. It's like, I can learn a foreign language right now. I don't have the bandwidth for that. So making it simple, giving them small, easy recipes to start out with and get that ball rolling. And then you start to realize, like you said earlier, learning a new skill, taking up a new hobby, it's really, it really boosts a person's confidence, makes you feel good about yourself. So whenever we take on something new and we're successful with it, we feel good about ourselves, and we want more of that feeling. We want to continue that. So
you get a little braver. Okay, I'm going to kind of try a little of this now. I make hummus out of red pepper. I don't even have to use, garbanzo beans. There's all sorts of other ways you can look at doing stuff, because, for some people, the garbanzo beans can be a little hard on their stomach. So yeah, there's all sorts of imaginative ways now, especially with more plant-based diets coming out there, that there's just other ways to incorporate things to kind of get that same flavor or that same texture, but in a healthier way, or not as gastric irritating. Yes.
For sure. I love that. I'll have to get that recipe from you. Maybe we can share it.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, this has just been wonderful. It's been awesome. I'm so excited about the Tillamook Community Wellness Program, and I'm really going to keep my eyes and ears more open to it. What if somebody from another town wants to do something like this? Do you have any words of wisdom and how they would start this?
Yes, we've had a lot of interest from outside communities, not only in Oregon, but in some larger contexts nationally, looking at this as a model. And I think there are some takeaways for sure. I think the fact that the county commissioners declared a year of wellness and made this that level of a priority for the community, and then they invested in it. They said, we're going to dedicate a department, and that department is going to dedicate their resources from, in this case, from the clinic revenue side, and some grant funding and other outside of the county funding sources.
Right.
But they are making that priority to dedicate those resources to this cause. That's really key. Somebody has to step up and say, we're going to fund this thing, and we're going to give it some legs and some infrastructure because grassroots efforts, you know, they can grow quickly and be really impactful, but they often dwindle and don't last.
Right.
There is
they need that formal structure. Yeah.
Exactly.
And people that will continue to man it. Grassroots are kind of all volunteer. So
yes.
Yeah.
And we are actually a grassroots and all volunteer entity, but we do have this backbone structure that that supports the volunteer efforts in a way that they get to just show up and give their brain power and their energy and their creativity to the work, and have to worry about whether or not somebody sent that email or wrote those notes and filed them away. And all of those tasks are covered by some mostly part-time staff positions. A lot of them are through the AmeriCorps Vista volunteer program. We've been able to get a volunteer through the AmeriCorps program almost every single year since we started this.
Yeah,
so that's
awesome.
Given us capacity. So I'd say, yeah, look into the AmeriCorps program, because that gives you a lot of added capacity, because this takes a lot of work. But figuring out how to leverage the things that you need from each other and say, okay, my organization has this, or this individual could spend this many hours a month on, and pooling all those resources together, establishing that infrastructure, and then really assessing the community need, not just coming in from outside and saying, we think obesity is a big problem and we need to address it. Have the community members that are interested in being part of this say, these are the things that we see that we think are really in need of being addressed. You know, that whatever everybody's saying, somebody needs to do something about this, that's probably the thing you should be working on, because obviously it doesn't seem like somebody's working on it. And what does that look like?
Right. And for a community to get involved with this, I mean, it really makes the whole community stronger, because then people are really vested and they know that the rest of their community is supporting them. And when people are feeling better, they're doing better. So there's less stress on other avenues of, you know, health care, not going to work because you're feeling bad, because you're sick, because you're depressed, whatever, that it has large effects on the whole.
It really does. I think that's really the benefit of collective impact, is there's a critical mass that you achieve that is pervasive, and it's just woven into the fabric of everything that's done in the community, and people all view themselves as part of that quilt, if you will. They're all patches in that quilt, and there's this thread that weaves everybody together, and you feel like you're part of something big, and you're part of contributing to something really positive.
Right.
And that is, it's something that is really difficult to measure, but it's palpable. It's very clear that that's part of why we've been so successful. And I would say that it's that sense of belonging and community, and also that sense of ownership, that we're going to take charge of our own community's well-being. We're not going to wait or worry about what's happening politically every 2 years or 4 years, or how much funding is or isn't going to be allocated. We're going to figure it out with what we have right now, and we'll do the best we can with what we have. And it's amazing when everybody comes to the table with that attitude, what you really can do.
Right. It's like stone soup.
Yes, it is. It turns out to be like amazing, and you have more than you ever thought you would ever have.
Right, absolutely. Well, this has been really fun and very informative, and I'm very excited about Tillamook. So if people want to get a hold of you, if they have questions, or if they want to be able to be a part of it or something for their community, they can get a hold of you at michelle@tillamookcountywellness.org.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you guys got that? michelle@tillamookcountywellness.org. All right. Well, thanks, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I look forward to finding out more and touching base with other people that are involved with this.
Well, thank you for giving us this opportunity, and good luck to you with your new adventure here.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. and we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.